Nahihirapan ba kayong mag-say no whenever you have cravings sa food, especially yung mga sweet foods or di kaya yung mga high-carb foods? I understand na isa yon sa number one struggle. Kaya nga marami tayong na-encounter from time to time na nagsabi na meron na silang experience when it comes to low carb. Kaya nga lang, either hindi nila na-sustain or nakapagsimula sila or nung simula pa lang ay hindi na nila kinaya. And one of the major struggles ng mga taong hindi makasustain ng low carb, ng hindi pagkain ng kanin, ng walang desserts na high carb, walang soft drinks, walang pasta, walang noodles, walang tinapay, it's because parati silang merong food cravings. Now, I know na yung low carb natin may kasamang fasting. That's why LCF yung ating term, low carb and fasting. And yung fasting naman, the most popular is IF, so intermittent fasting. But hindi lang basta intermittent fasting yung nandyan. Others can also just do circadian fasting. Pwede itong short fasting lang. Pwedeng 12 hours lang ay makakakain ka na. But you have to take note of the time na dapat meron itong break from your last eating window until your sleeping time. Yun yung importante when it comes to circadian fasting. Now, for those with food cravings, I will share with you what I learned today. Yun mismong na-experience ko. There are 5 things that you can do to curb your food cravings. So, number 1 is when you eat a high-protein meal sa first meal mo sa umaga o di kaya sa lunchtime, if you are eating brunch together, it's important to eat a protein-rich food. Nakita nyo naman yung kinain ko kanina. It was a lot of protein in one plate. My eggs, my chicken, my pork. And what's the importance of eating proteins, especially on your first meal? Kapag kumain kayo ng protein-rich foods on your first meal ay you will already satisfy your body's needs, not just for proteins and also for glucose kung meron man itong kakailanganin. At yung maganda dito, hindi ito yung glucose na parati lang bigla-biglang tataas ang iyong blood sugar at magkakaroon ng spike because yung mga high carb and yung mga sugar na mga simple sugars, bigla itong papataasin yung ating blood glucose but bigla itong babagsak din. Because when there's spike in glucose, magto-spike din si insulin. And immediately, magda-drop si glucose. Kaya, in an instant, you will crave for more. You will have this episode of hypoglycemia. Iisipin mo, bumababa yung blood sugar mo. And yes, that can be true. Bumabagsak yung iyong blood sugar. But the answer there is actually not just to keep on sustaining it for more sugar, but actually make a new route na kung saan meron kang pakonti-konting sugar, yung kakailanganin na ng katawan mo, and there's no insulin spike na mag-drop down ng iyong blood sugar. It's going to be stable. And that glucose can actually come from your proteins because proteins is made up of amino acids. At yung amino acids na yan, it's going to be used either for muscle building or for repair sa katawan, and others are also glucogenic. So it can be used as gluconeogenesis. So you don't have to be afraid of proteins kasi it will stabilize our blood glucose. Now, when our blood glucose is stable, our cravings hindi na rin mag-appear because yung glucose mo nga is steady state, hindi siya nag-up and down. So it's the sudden drop from sudden spike ng glucose, yun yung nakaka-lead into sugar craving. So number 1 is, napatunayan natin ngayon yan because my last meal was actually that time lang and hindi na ako kumain until now. And I no longer plan on eating, especially it's already very late for me. So number 1 on about curbing your sugar or food cravings would be kung paano ito ma-counter is to actually eat more proteins in the morning. So the more nutrient-dense kind of proteins, the real proteins, is important. You save the other kinds of proteins na processed as last resort. If you can eat eggs, egg whites, lean meat, all the better. You reserve lang yung para sa pinaka-busy na talaga na wala nang time to cook, you can go for whey protein isolate. But whey protein isolate, these are processed, not very much recommended, especially sa mga taong nag-undergo pa ng healing. Only reserved for those people na walang medical conditions and are physically active. And meron silang whey protein isolate source na alam natin plain, walang flavorings, walang kahit anong artificial na flavors. And of course, best if it's really grass-fed kind of whey protein. Hindi rin yung mga plant-based because most plant-based are coming from soy. Others can tolerate it, but generally it's not recommended. And the best way to get your proteins is from real food. So the highest bioavailability and the better quality of proteins are coming from shrimp, from fish, from chicken, especially chicken breast. And I know boring yung chicken breast, no? Before, I really don't eat chicken breast. But now, since I am prioritizing proteins to increase my muscle bulk, I learned to appreciate chicken breast. And lean pork and baka, kambing, and other meats, kalabaw meat, that's also okay. So first thing in the morning, you can eat your proteins. The second thing that you need to make sure is your hydration. Minsan, yung mga cravings natin, yung ating paghahanap ng certain foods, minsan kinukulang lang tayo sa water. So make sure that you are well hydrated. We know, sabi natin, we have to regulate our water intake na hindi yung sobra-sobra. But when it comes to kulang na kulang and sobra-sobra, you just want to stay in the middle or at least even a little sobra. Pero wag niyong parating kukulangin ng water yung inyong katawan. You will be dehydrated. And that dehydration can even manifest as electrolyte imbalance. Kasi nga, kapag konti na yung water mo sa katawan, yung electrolytes mo sobrang dami. So you can actually have manifestations na hypertonic na dehydration yung tawag doon, na yung water is mababa, pero yung electrolytes ay sobrang dami. So you have to ensure that you drink enough water, especially if you are already very active during that time. Limit water when you are already resting, like when you are about to sleep. But for those na working pa, active, nabibilad sa araw, and just basically functioning, you need water. And for regulation naman, just try to avoid water, so much water, mga 2 hours before your bedtime. And also, number 3 that we learned is to make sure that your electrolyte intake is also covered. So, yung kinain nating pork is medyo maalat and that's why yung sobra dyan lulutuin natin for tomorrow kasi medyo maalat siya but I can tolerate a lot of salt na sa pagkain because salt is very essential. Kung meron kayong kailangan gustong siguraduhin na electrolyte sa katawan nyo, unahin nyo yung asin. It's mura ito, always available, readily available, and most importantly, kailangan talaga natin ito. We can tolerate a little more salt than very less salt. Because if there's less salt, mas marami pong problema ang mangyayari sa ating katawan if we are always on low salt intake. And also, if you are physically active, like what we do now, we are doing our morning walk. Maraming salamat nga pala. Shout out to everyone who is supporting our city walk and talk. For those na hindi alam, every morning around 7 to 8 in the morning, nagkakaroon tayo ng Facebook Live audio room. It's like a podcast na pinag-uusapan lang natin anything under the sun. It's just my multitasking endeavor while doing my morning walk. And maraming salamat for always tuning in. And tomorrow, I hope I'll get to be with you again. So, since I'm already starting to be physically active, I make sure also na aside from salt, meron akong extra sources like potassium. So, yung ating eggs, nilalagyan ko yan ng cream of tartar or di kaya new salt. Yung new salt is potassium salt na it's like salt pero potassium yung kanyang base and not sodium. So I make sure that I have that. And true enough, when you already have enough of those electrolytes, your cravings is also not there. Kasi when we crave for something, especially sweet, you really have to question yourself. Dahil baka hindi totoong craving yon. Kasi yung katawan natin, there is no such real grabe na need for sugar except for hypoglycemic talaga, especially yung mga diabetic na meron ng iniinom na gamot o yung mga nagro-roller coaster spike. Pero our body, supposedly, yung ating atay, kayang-kayang gumawa ng kanyang sariling glucose coming from other sources. Yun yung gluconeogenesis, parati nating pinag-uusapan yan. And so, when you crave for something, most likely, if it's not water, most likely, it is just electrolytes. Sila muna yon. So, before you give in, you take something salty, you take your electrolyte drink if you have, or just plain pinch of salt and water lang. Observe it for 5 minutes. Most likely, mawawala yan. So, you do the water fix and you do the salt fix first. And usually, eto ay nag-i-improve din. And number four na technique or things that you can do when craving for food is to check if you are really nutritionally hungry. And if hindi naman, sometimes merong reserve na I know a lot of people who can actually control themselves, but they just need a little. Just like yung apo ni Coach, sometimes it can help with just a little sweetness. Okay? So this is not advisable for those who are going through addiction process or letting go of carbs and letting go of sweets. If you think you have problem with control, na kapag nakagsimula kayong kumain ng sweet is you already indulge, hindi nyo na mapigilan yung sarili ninyo. So this fourth technique is not advisable for you. So the fourth technique that you can do is to eat a little sweet, but still low carb. So you choose the low carb one. So you can have the better low carb actually would be low carb fruits like isa or dalawang strawberry. So low carb pa rin yun, but that could be something sweet. Or you can also have 5 pieces of blueberry. So low carb pa rin yun. And reserve na lang yung mga low carb goodies like dark chocolate o yung mga low carb na mga treats, reserve lang. Just like today, wala naman kaming available na low carb goodies here, but for Miss Monette, thank you so much. Meron siyang binigay sa amin na low carb ice cream. And it was really good. So, good news, hindi namin naubos yung isang tab. Kahit masarap siya, so just a few bites, that was already enough. Kasi ayoko rin na magtagal because we don't want to keep on storing so many food. So, yun, that dessert, maybe that also helped. So, hindi siya naubos, so just tikim lang. I know people who can survive low carb, pero kailangan meron silang kahit isang kakaunting slice of chocolate lang na dark. Kahit dark chocolate or sweetened by stevia, yun lang enough na. And for those people who have control, then you can accommodate that. Hindi yun mortal sin kumbaga. Okay? Alam nyo na what will it do to your body. So if you decide to eat a little of that, just to help you go through the process para masustain ang araw na ito. Kasi baka kung hindi mo pinagbigyan yung sarili mo on that one small bite of chocolate, baka bukas ng umaga ay pumunta ka at madapa ka at kumain ka ng isang buong bar ng high carb chocolate. So you have to know yourself. Hindi ibig sabihin that all of these tips you heard from me, isusundin nyo na agad because some of these might not be applicable to you. And so to recap, prioritizing proteins in your first meal can be your best friend when it comes to lowering your cravings throughout the day, especially na yung kakainin mo is the good quality of proteins and also yung mga proteins na nakakabusog and also nutritious. And then second, you make sure na tama yung inyong hydration, inyong water intake. Bago mag-give in sa cravings, tanungin muna, baka uhaw ka lang. Number 3 would be your electrolytes. Make sure that you are consuming enough electrolytes, starting with salt. salt yung pinaka-basic. Huwag niyong komplikahin yung mga bagay-bagay bago kayo mag-isip ng potassium, ng magnesium, ng calcium. Unahin lang muna yung asin. That is why there is a book that is called The Salt Fix. Dahil yun talaga isa sa very essential electrolytes na nakakaligtaan natin. Number 4, if kailangan talagang mag-give in sa pagkaing kinikrave mo, hindi kailangang buong serving yung iyong kakainin. So, tikim lang. So, yun yung sabi natin sa mga keto baking chef dyan, mga keto bakers dyan, yung mga nagtitinda ng mga keto goodies. Kung titikim, tikim lang. Huwag kainin ang buong slice. Tikim is just tikim. And yun nga, in Cebuano, we have a term for that. So, pawala sa kaibog. Okay? So, pampawala lang ng cravings, pampawala ng, yung parang naiinggit, pampawala ng inggit. So, pawala sa kaibog. Yun lang. Like for example, sa iba, yung hindi makalet go ng soft drinks, so meron na ngayong mga zero calorie soft drinks, di ba? And still not advisable, it's in caution list. So, isang gulp lang. So, yun yung sabi nila. So, patikim lang, just pawala sa kaibog. Okay? So, that's the fourth technique that you can do. And the last technique is something that works for me. And it is the concept of delay, don't deny. Okay? So, the Delay, Don't Deny is also a book from Jean Stephens. So, isa siya sa mga first na nag-publish ng a book about intermittent fasting, how it is helpful for us. So, as for me naman, I am planning to eat breakfast tomorrow. And kung kakain ako ng late night, then hindi ako makakapag-breakfast because that's going to be very early for me. But since I closed my window this afternoon at 2:30 in the afternoon, so by 6:30 in the morning pa lang, naka-intermittent fasting na ako ng 16 hours. And if after our walk and after our city walk and talk episode, by 8:30, pwede ako mag-breakfast doon because the area where we jog, where we walk is also a good place. Sobrang ganda ng area na yon na people are looking very healthy kasi nagja-jog, nagbabike, nag-yoga. Sobrang active ng area na yon and it's still a peaceful place. So, I want to enjoy breakfast there, maybe do morning work there na after our episode. So, yun yung isang technique for me to delay the reward. Because when I know if I give in late night, then I might not be able to enjoy that in the morning. So, it's something that I plan. I intentionally do to enjoy. Although, hindi ko pa alam what will I eat there, but definitely, it's going to be low carb. So, yun yung 5 things that I learned today about curbing food cravings. And I hope you also learned something about it. In relation to this, I want to introduce to you, nagagawa ko ng different YouTube channel kasi I understand na marami sa inyo who are following our page specifically for low carb and fasting. But for those of you who have been with me in our City Walk and Talk episodes, alam nyo na hindi lang yun yung laman ng utak ko. Low carb and fasting is just one of the many things that we should be thinking about and we should be considering about sa buhay natin. And that's why I want to share with you whatever things that I will learn na hindi lang basta related to low carb, hindi lang basta related to fasting, but also in life in general. So I will publish the new YouTube channel, Vicarious Learning. Ano yung Vicarious Learning? So, Vicarious Learning is ito yung mga learnings natin that we can get experience from others through imagination. Through the experiences of another person, we can actually learn. Hindi kailangan ma-experience natin yun, especially if it's a negative experience. If it's a good experience, it's also still good kasi you will look forward to that experience. You will envision yourself having that experience. And hopefully, you will get inspired na ma-experience mo rin yun yourself. But for negative experiences like the side effects o yung wrong investment o kung na-scam ako o ano, there I will share with you. So hopefully, hindi nyo na ma-experience yung mga negative na mga bagay-bagay sa buhay. So, I hope you can support our new YouTube channel. It is called Vicarious Learning. Wala pang laman yan, ha? But we will upload there yung mga videos natin ngayon from our walk and talk episodes. Nasa episode 5 na kasi tayo. And it's going to be more in the coming days. Hopefully, mako-complete natin yung whole month of February. So I hope you can enjoy and you can also support by subscribing that channel na wala pang laman. I know wala pang laman yan. And maraming salamat. This is especially for those who want to be a part of our journey, not just in low carb, not just in fasting, but life in general. And so, yan yung ating learning for today. It's the 5 things I learned about curbing food cravings na na-experience ko talaga ngayong araw na ito. But there are other ways and techniques how to counter it. It's written in our books, the books na pinablish natin way back in 2019 about weight, about health, and about wellness. And this year, we will also publish the second edition of that books before tayo mag-proceed sa ating panglimang book. Bakit panglima? Kasi yung fourth book natin is yun yung ating happy, healthy na planner. Yun yung fourth book natin because it's a planner but it's actually a book in itself and it's going to be your book. It's going to be your life for 2022 with incorporation of low carb and fasting. And for those who will join our masterclass this coming February, all participants will have a free copy ng planner na yon. So, maraming salamat everyone. Yun lang muna for tonight. I hope to see you all. I hope you always stay within our safe list sa ating JGC Rojo food list. And always remember, kung kayang mag-exercise, do some mobility. Always remember na yung sun exposure is very important. Kung kayang mag-IF, mag-IF. At kung kakain ng low carb, it's the nutrient-dense low carb, not the empty low carbs. And lastly, always pray, keep the positive spirit, and just believe in yourself. So maraming salamat. I hope to see you also in our LCF Masterclass, in our exclusive community for more premium contents and learning. Maraming salamat po. Have a good night. Always remember to stay low carb so that we all stay safe. Have a good night.